So, inshallah, I want to introduce our honorable speaker, Engineer Abdul Quayyum Khan Kundi. I think that is the longest name we have so far for our speakers, inshallah. Engineer Kundi graduated from NED University of Engineering and Technology, which is my alma mater too. And he is former president of Pakistan Chamber of Commerce, USA. He's a former member of Chairman Advising Committee of PTI. If you don't know what PTI is, it's Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf. That's one of the political party in Pakistan, emerging political party, getting more traction. And he's a member of PTI Central Tarbiyah Council and in charge of curriculum development. And he authored 3 books: Freedom by Choice, Lessons from the Quran, Islamic Social Contract. Inshallah, Kundi sir.
Assalamu alaikum. First of all, I want to thank Uzair Bhai, board of MyDeen, and all of you for coming tonight for this boring subject of politics. These days there are too many debates, speeches, commentary about what's going to happen in November. But there is also another thing going on. Every country you look, there is protest going on. In Sao Paulo, people are protesting about fares and pollution and water. In London, students are protesting about rise in tuition. In Paris, there is protest about immigrants. In Germany, there is Pagida talking about Muslim immigrants coming to Germany. In Thailand, there is a military regime. In Middle East, the whole crisis. In South Asia, wherever you look, there seems to be a crisis. There seems to be discontentment with politicians and political parties. And what is the reaction to that? The reaction is that people like Donald Trump, who has no experience in politics, who has no knowledge of policy, who has never held any elected office, is now seems to be the candidate for the Republican Party. And today, Governor Christie of New Jersey endorsed him to be the next president of the United States. Similarly, in Spain, a professor started a political party, and in first election they got 15% votes. In India, Aam Aadmi Party became the government in New Delhi, first time. So everywhere you look, there are new parties, new people out, they call it outsiders. They are coming into politics. Why? Because people are angry at politicians and political parties because they think these politicians have not delivered. They have made promises, they have made commitments, and then they have broken them. But is this the real solution? To allow outsiders to become the representative of the people and make more mess? David Brooks wrote an interesting article today. He said, this is a snowball effect. You are angry at politicians, so you elect non-politicians, they make more mistakes, you get angrier, you elect even worse person, and then it gets bad and the society breaks down. But that is not the problem in my view. The problem is not the politicians or political parties. The problem is the political system that we have been using for last 300 years. Western democracy started from the French Revolution in 1795. And America and French led this movement of Western democracy. And then it became their idea to promote around the world. So they think that if all countries become democratic or follow Western democracy, we will have more peace, prosperity, and income equality and all that. But I think that has been proven wrong now, because every country that has Western democracy is experiencing protest, is experiencing breakdown of system. So in my view, What we need is another look at the political system and come up with a new model. And I think Islam offers a model that is different from Western democracy, and we need to study it and see how we can evolve it and develop it. But why is politics important? I mean, why we have to think about it? Why do we have to change the system? Why do we have to look for a new system? From the moment you get up in the morning until you go to bed, there are 1,000 different ways politics is affecting you. The safety on the roads you drive, the safety in the car you drive, the quality of education your children get, the quality of health care you get in a hospital, the quality of air, water, food, your clothes, what kind of dyes used on your clothes, everything is decided by the politics. So in 1,000 invisible ways, politics is affecting your life every day. And it's important for you to take interest in that. So what is the Islamic political thought? What is the Islamic political system? Let's start from the first thing that makes us a Muslim, which is the kalima. And what does it say? La ilaha illallah. There is no God but God. This is the spiritual part. This is your personal connection with God that you establish. You say, I submit to one God, one creator who made this universe and who made me. But then there is another part. You don't become a Muslim by saying La ilaha illallah. There are many other faiths that say similar thing, La ilaha illallah. But if you don't say Muhammadur Rasulullah, you won't become a Muslim. So what is the second part? The second part is the social contract you sign up to. You say La ilaha illallah, there is no God but God, and Muhammadur Rasulullah, and Muhammad is my prophet, and I am going to follow his example. That is the social contract you sign up to. That is the political deal you make. Now what is that social contract? Prophet gave that contract in two forms, one is Quran, which is the revelation God gave him, and a substantial part of Quran is about political approach, and the other is his Sunnah, his example. When we look at the life of the Prophet, we see three stages of his life. There are three distinct stages. His first stage is when he is a merchant, a trader, a businessman, establishing himself as an honest man, as an upright man, as a valuable member of the community. Everybody say he is Sadiq and Amin. That is, he is a truthful man and he keeps trust. He established himself in that first stage of his life. Everybody agrees with that. Nobody denies that. He is the most sought after man. Whenever there is a dispute in the community, everybody goes to him to find a solution because they know he is a wise man, he is an honest man, he is an upright man. And then at the age of 40, the second stage of his life starts. When God sends him a message, sends him an angel and tells him that you are the prophet, you have to go give a message. In this second stage of his life, he focuses on the spirituality. La ilaha illallah, there is no God but God. And he is in Makkah, he is preaching to his friends, his family, his relatives, he is not getting much support. Rather, people feel that he is a force of civil unrest. The tribal chiefs think that he is going to destroy their structure, their system, their society. They are afraid of him. They want to get back at him. They want to threaten him. They want to offer him a deal. They are doing everything they can to get him away from his message. In this 10-year period, that is the second stage of his life, he focuses on the spiritual content of the message of his life. Then comes the third stage. People from Medina who are facing a lot of issues, social issues, they are tribes who are fighting among each other, they can't get along, they have a lot of fitna in that city and they want to get over it. And they think Prophet Muhammad can solve those problems. So they approach him and say, why don't you are not getting much success in Mecca, why don't you come to Medina and become our leader and we'll follow your message. He sends some of his companions to Medina to go talk to the community and see if they are ready for the message. And then he migrates. And there is start the third stage of his life, Prophet's life, where he becomes not only a spiritual leader, but also becomes a political leader. He becomes the head of state. The state of Medina, he becomes the head of state. You can call him a president or prime minister, whatever designation you want, but he becomes the head of state. There, he signs treaties, he writes a political constitution, charter of Medina, he fights wars. He does everything a political leader would do. He even sends ambassadors to other kings and tells them about his message. So he performs all the duties of a political leader. But when there is a conquest of Mecca and he could choose to go back to Mecca, he decides to stay with the people who supported him, who gave him a place to establish the religion of Islam. There are three main political ideologies in the world right now. And I will try to explain it in as brief as term as possible. One is communism, which we can say is ownership by all. It is practiced in China, Cuba, Vietnam, North Korea. So around 2 billion people are pursuing that ideology, communism, where state owns everything. You don't own a house, you don't own a business, you don't own nothing, you don't own nothing. The state owns everything. In extreme form, the state even owns your children. State can take away your children in communism. In extreme form of communism, they can take away your children. They tried to do it in, I think, Cambodia or Vietnam. So communism is ownership by everyone. The state owns everything. Nobody else owns anything. The other form that we have, which is very popular these days because the media talks about it, is Western democracy. And if we define Western democracy, it's decision by majority. Majority decides how the society would live. If 51% people say same-sex marriage is okay, it's okay. The other 49% who disagree have to accept it. Why? Because 51% said it's alright. So Western democracy is based on decision by majority. And now comes Islamic concept. What does Islam say about that? If we have to define Islamic concept as comparison to these two systems, Islam says management by majority. You can't decide by majority. If majority says same-sex marriage is allowed, you can't do it. Why? Because Quran prohibited it. If somebody says I want to sell alcohol openly, you can't do it because Quran says you can't do it. Quran says interest is not allowed, you can't do it. So majority cannot decide what moral values you adopt. But majority has to manage the community. That's very interesting. Everybody has to take part in the management of the community. That is the message of Islam, political message of Islam. So communism is ownership by all, Western democracy is decision by majority, and Islamic concept is management by majority. Moral values are dictated in the umbrella form by Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet. Now what are the basic features? What are the basic features of the Islamic political system? The most important thing is that there is no separation of church and state. This is one of the most significant, the most debated point between Western democracy and Islamic political system, is that there is no separation between church and state. How can it be? La ilaha illallah is the church, is the religion. Religion. And Muhammad Rasulullah is the state, is the social contract. There is no separation, they go together. So in the Islamic concept of politics, there is no separation of church and state. And actually in the secular model, they say that secular society do not object to religion. They give a counter argument. They say, oh, there is a separation of church and state, but a secular state does not tell people not to follow a religion. But they don't teach religion in the school. They think it's unnecessary. The secular state says religious education is unnecessary. If somebody is interested, they should do it themselves. The Islamic concept is there is no separation of church and state. The state has to provide not for this world but also for the hereafter. So the state has to enable that. But there is no pope in Islam. What do we do? I mean, there is no pope, so who defines what the religion says? Who is the authority that is going to define the moral values that a political system has to adopt? Because there is no pope. And if there was a pope, by the way, I couldn't write this book because I had to take his permission. Because I'm saying Islamic social contract. The pope would say, oh, how can you do it without me? Come to me first. But there is no pope in Islam. So what do we do now? How do we define the social values that are promoted by Islam? Quran presents human nature. Quran suggests that human nature is in an evolutionary stage. Human beings are evolving. We are not yet in our perfect form. We are evolving. That's why Quran repeatedly tells us in many verses, why don't people of intellect think? Why don't people of intellect think on the universe, on the things we have created, on the features we have provided, on the food we have given you, on the environment we have created for you? Why don't they think? So Islam suggests that human nature is evolutionary, it's still evolving. Okay, so we have no pope and we have human nature which is evolving. What does that mean? It means that the message of Quran has to be looked upon every new generation. Prophet Muhammad in his last speech, at the last Hajj sermon, this is the last paragraph. Take my message to the people and may every generation interpret it better and better and better. That's the message. And Quran is saying the same thing. That human beings are at a loss. Surah Asr. Why? Because they're still evolving. They are too sure of themselves. But how can they be too sure when they are still evolving? So human nature is evolving. There is no pope. So how do you create the moral values or develop that umbrella under which the political system has to operate? That is through ijma, which is consensus, and ijtihad, which is independent reasoning. So without any authority to define religious parameters or moral values for you, it offers you ijma, ijtihad, so every generation can look at the message. Imagine, at the time of Prophet, there was no cell phone, there was no television, there was no cable, there was no internet, there was no airplane, railway, motor car, nothing. How do we deal with this new environment? What are the ethics we follow when we talk on a cell phone or when we communicate on a cell phone? You know, what values should we adopt in these new communication models? It is through ijma and ijtihad. So Islamic thought is that every generation should look at the message afresh. This is my basic disagreement with Sayyid Qutb and Maulana Maududi. Sayyid Qutb, and these are two philosophers who predominantly dominated the political thought in 20th century. Both these political scientists tells us we need to go back 14 years. So they want to look back, and when you look back and walk, most likely you're going to fall. What we need to do is look forward. That does not, I am not suggesting that the history is not important. History is very important. This is another message from Quran. When Quran narrates stories of other generations, it says that these stories are for you to ponder so you can make better decisions. So I am not suggesting we should not learn from the history, but we should look at the history and then move forward. So it should be forward looking rather than backward thinking. The other thing Islam proposes is that there should be unity in the community. And Islam looks down upon divisions. Politically, what does it mean? It means that in Islamic polity, there will be no political parties. Because political parties effectively divide the community. Left, right, liberal, social, conservative, this or that. So you are divided. Islam looks down upon that. It says the community should work together to solve their problems. In that situation, how would the candidates come? And what kind of candidates you have to choose from? One is that Quranic verses say the best among you are those who are the most righteous. It does not say the one who is most pious. Piety is personal. Piety is that I pray 5 times, I fast 30 days, I go do Hajj, and I do all these rituals. This is piety, right? But piety is not related to another person. Righteousness relates to other people. How do I deal with my family? How do I deal with my neighbors? How do I deal with my co-worker? How do I deal with my political activist? If I deal with them rightly, justly, fairly, then I'm a righteous man, or you are a righteous man. So Islam proposes that best among you are those who are most righteous. So when a candidate is best for the community, the candidate cannot offer himself for the job, the community has to pick him and go to him and request him. So in Islamic political system, the candidates will not be campaigning, community will be campaigning on their behalf. So there will be no donor money, there will be no special interest, there will be no backroom deals, there will be no lobbyist paying you money. It's the community who is saying this man is good. So today, if it was Islamic election going on here, people will be campaigning for Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, and they'll be sitting home. Because why? Because they can't campaign for themselves. The community should campaign for them. This is an important difference. And then the scientists, political scientists say, okay, if there are no political parties, how would you form consensus in the parliament? How would they make policy? It will be too chaotic and this and that. But in Iran, they are doing it. There are no political party. There are still elections. So there is an example. It can be done. The candidate who is elected to the parliament should look at the best interest of the community, not to his party or his special interest or anybody else. He should make legislative decisions based on what is best for the community. And this is a very substantial difference in the Islamic political system. Another interesting thing that we have to remember, that all prophets, not Prophet Muhammad only, all prophets had this spiritual and political message. Jesus goes to the market and turns over the tables and say, money changers are destroying our community. That's a political message. Musa goes to Pharaoh and says, liberate my people. It's a political demand. You are oppressor, you are using them as slaves, you are oppressing them, I ask you to release my people. And he says, who are you to ask that? And then he says, I have a divine mandate. And he shows those miracles. Shuaib goes to his community and says, please do not do cheating in measurement. Measure properly. That's a political message. Yusuf becomes Prime Minister of Egypt. And he manages so well that the Amir of Egypt gives him the place which we call Palestine now. According to some historian, this was given to Yusuf. Solomon was a king. So all these prophets that came had both spiritual and political component of their lives. So what are the social values that Islam is offering? There are many values, but I want to focus on some that are used against Islam in a propaganda movement. That Islam is violent, Islam is not giving equal rights to women, Islam is not allowing diversity, Islam is intolerant of other religions, all this propaganda about Islam. So I want to focus on those only, because these are very important. The first of these values that Islam offers is diversity. And Quran is full of verses about diversity, but I have picked some that I believe very strongly convey the message. So what does Islam say about diversity? This is Surah Rum, which is chapter 30, verse 22. And among his signs is the creation of the heavens and the earth, and the variation in your languages and your colors. Verily, in that are signs for those who know. I mean, there cannot be a clearer message. It says languages, colors, races. This is the plan of God. God has said in a verse, if I wished, everybody would be Muslim and everybody would be one race. But that is not the plan. The plan is to challenge us with diversity in language, in religion, in race, in color, in social differences. And that is the challenge we have to live. So diversity is ingrained in the message of Islam, political message of Islam. The other is freedom of religion. Muslims are intolerant, by the way, these days. Muslims are intolerant. But Islam is not intolerant. Why? Because Muslims don't make an effort to learn Islam, unfortunately. And the reason I am speaking today, and the reason I love to come to MyDeen and places like these, and Sayyid Ghazvini's classes, and I thank Sayyid Ghazvini for coming tonight. Thank you very much. I have learned a lot from him. And in this book, he has a big contribution in guiding me in the right direction. So, learning about religion is very important. But we don't. So Muslims are intolerant in their societies, but Islam is not. Let me give you one verse that I found very strong on this subject. This is Surah Anam, which is chapter 6, verse 108. Revile not you those whom they call upon besides Allah. Revile not you those whom they call upon besides Allah, lest they out of spite revile Allah in their ignorance. Thus have we made alluring to each people its own doing. In the end will they not return to their Lord, and we shall then tell them the truth of all they did. I mean, it tells us, do not derogate any religion. Do not say bad things about anybody else's religion, because they can turn around and say bad things about your religion. And you are basically contributing to provoking people to say bad things about Allah, and thereby committing a sin. When Charlie Hebdo published caricatures of Prophet Muhammad, we all rose up and said it's wrong, it's not freedom of speech, it's fitna. And I said it in my writings and my Facebook posting that it's a fitna. It's not freedom of speech. The world condemned us for being not allowing freedom of expression, but the world did not know that when the caricatures of Jesus were published, Muslims were protesting also. Charlie Hebdo printed caricatures of Jesus and Muslims protested. Nobody protested, but Muslims did. Nobody else's faith, because then they can turn around and do the same to you, and that will be bad thing, which will create fitna, fasad, and division. So Islam offers freedom of religion, complete freedom of religion. The other thing that is said is about privacy. What does Islam say about privacy? And I found two verses that are quite clearly suggesting where Islam stands on privacy. Today you are hearing that iPhone Apple is not allowing iPhone to be unlocked so that privacy of millions of people can be protected. And Islam has a very strong message about privacy. Here are two verses that are very pertinent. Surah Baqarah, which is chapter 2, verse 189. It is not virtue if you enter your houses from the back. It is not virtue if you enter your own houses from the back. It is virtue if you fear Allah. Enter houses through the proper doors and fear Allah that you may prosper. I mean, imagine, privacy of your family is very important. Imagine you are entering from the back of your house and you have grown kids or your grandparents or parents, and they could be in a compromising situation. It's embarrassing. But if you come through the proper door, usually you will avoid these kind of situations. So privacy of family members, forget about neighbor or co-workers or anybody else. Privacy of your own family member is very important. The other verse is Surah Nur, which is number 24, verse 27. O you who believe, enter not houses other than your own, until you have asked permission and salute those in them. That is best for you in order that you may heed what is seemly. So your own family's privacy and the privacy of your neighbors, you cannot violate it. It's sanctified by Quran. You have to respect it and protect it. The other thing they talk about is the woman's right. There is a lot of talk that Islam does not offer equal rights to women, and there are two things that they mention. One is that woman's evidence is half in a court of law, and the other is inheritance, that she is paid less than a man. So let me try to address that. There is only one verse in Quran, in the whole 114 surah and 30 books, there is only one verse that talks about an evidence in a court of law, and even there it's about a commercial transaction. And let me read this verse to you, it's very important. Surah Baqarah, which is surah number 2 and verse 282. O you who believe, when you deal with each other in transaction involving future obligations in a fixed period of time, reduce them to writing. Let a scribe write down faithfully as between the parties. Let not a scribe refuse to write as Allah has taught him. So let him write. Let him who incurs liability dictate. But let him fear his Lord Allah and not diminish aught of what he owes. If the party liable is mentally deficient or weak or unable himself to dictate, let his guardian dictate faithfully and get 2 witnesses out of your own men. And if there are not 2 men, then a man and 2 women, such as you choose, for witness, so that if one of them errs, the other can remind her. I spent a lot of time, this was such a critical verse. It took me a lot of, and I had meeting with Sayyid Ghazvini, I went through books, I spoke to other scholars, I did a lot of time on this verse. Is one of the verses that I spent most of the time to understand what is it saying. Here are a few things that you have to understand. Number 1 is talking about a commercial transaction of a future liability. You are buying a house, it's going to close in 90 days, and you need witnesses. So 2 men or 1 man and 2 women, fine. But then it says that you have to ask the other when one errs. It does not say that the both women have to be present in a court of law at the same time. If they were asked to be present at the same time, then you can say it's half witness. But the verse is not saying that they have to be present in the court at the same time. What does that mean? It means that between man and woman have special needs. They could be pregnant, and in the last trimester, where they have a special physical condition, their psychology is affected, their their hormones are at a higher level. There is a special condition for a woman in that state. The other is that she may have a special period. In that state also there is an emotional, and we all know that. I mean, there are doctors sitting, they can talk about it. So the message of Islam is justice, and justice delayed is justice denied. So there is a case, commercial case, where the judge asks for a woman, she comes, gives a witness. The other lawyer gets up and says, I don't trust this witness. This witness is in a special condition, and I think she is forgetting. Right? And then the other woman can come and say, yes or no. She is right or wrong. So that is a special case. The other thing, when Hazrat Umar became Khalifa, he appointed women as a first market inspector. Can you imagine that market inspector giving punishment to somebody, and he goes to court and he asks for witness, and that market inspector comes and says, this is what I did, and the court says, bring another woman. So this verse about witness of a woman is about a commercial transaction in a special situation. And inshallah, as a politician, if I ever got an opportunity, I am going to bring all the scholars together and say, tell us why women witness should be had, as some orthodox scholars say. So inshallah, this is one subject that is very dear to me, and I am going to work on it as a politician. The other thing is income inequality. Islam, Quran, there are many verses. Quran says God has given more to some and less to some others. So what does Republicans say? Republicans say individuals can make their own decision about their wealth. Democrats say we'll charge them more taxes and decide what can happen. Both are wrong. Why? You are in Fresno, you are rich, they take money in Washington from you, Washington DC, and then they spend it in New York. I mean, how does Fresno benefit? How does income equality in Fresno is reduced? You are here, you are wealthy here, but they take money from you and spend it in New York or Seattle or Boston. How does it help Fresno? So Islam says that there will be income inequality, but the people have to take care of their community, local community. All verses about charity are local. Your neighbors, your relatives, and those pass through your city. So Islam proposes that the state should not do anything about it, and people should spend their own money on charity. Then before I close, I want to talk about immigration. Immigrant, your status as immigrant. You are first generation Americans. Prophet has left a good example for you. He went to Medina, he never went back to Makkah. He spent all his life there, and he's buried there. The city is known through him. This is your country now. You need to get involved socially, politically, economically. In my view, you are only involved economically. You are not involved as much as you should be socially and politically. You should be involved socially, politically. The other thing that I've noticed, and I wanted to emphasize this point, is that when people don't know you, they'll be afraid of you. When people know you, they'll be more comfortable with you. When you have Eid gatherings, they can't join you in the prayer, but they can join you in the feast. They can break bread with you. But we never invite them. Why? 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 Because we're scared. We're scared that since they're the majority, their culture will overtake us. Come on. Islam is the most rational religion in the world. It offers the most rational values. Trust me, you will change them before they change you. Involve with them. Trust me. I have researched, alhamdulillah, as much as I could on many religions, and I can tell you that Islam, when you talk to them and you debate with them, my wife knows, and she was angry sometimes, they would come to my home, the priest, and sit hours with me, and every time they would go and say, we have to bring another guy to talk to you. Why? Because they don't have rationality in their ideas. And I want to close with a personal story. and why it's dear to me to talk about politics, Islamic political thought. You know, as a practicing politician, I'm very involved in making statements and policy positions, and I'm write articles for the newspapers. So, sometime back when TTP, which is Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, did a terrorist attack on civilian population, I made a statement that they are criminals and they should be dealt with the force of the law, apprehended and punished. The most severe punishment possible, because they are killing innocent people. And I made that statement on Facebook. So they are very technology savvy by the way. So one of their supporters said, Mr. Kundi, you are against application of Sharia in Pakistan and you are creating hurdles for this objective, and if you do not amend your ways, you will be dealt with it. And I said, okay, that's good, we want Sharia in Pakistan. Tell me, where did you go to learn your Sharia? He said, my commander told me about Sharia. I said, okay, where did your commander go to learn his Sharia? Which university? What qualification he has to tell us that he wants to impose Sharia? He said, he showed me a flyer. This is serious. If we do not define what does Islam say about politics, what does it say about organizing our societies, then those with guns will define it for us. So we have to take interest, we have to learn about the political thought, and we have to bring it in our societies. And if there was a Muslim sitting with founding fathers, here is what he would do. The founding fathers are sitting and saying, this country is established to offer life, liberty and pursuit of happiness, right? That's the creed of America, right? Life, liberty and pursuit of happiness. And the Muslim is sitting with them and scratching his head and he says, if you say happiness and it's a secular society, people will be buying a lot of TVs and things, you know. There will be a lot of materialism. Because the material is going to give you happiness. Because it's a secular society, right? And that's exactly what happened. So the Muslim is proposing another idea. He would say, let's do it this way. Life, liberty and pursuit of contentment. Thank you very much. If you have any questions.